Hello, everyone. Diana Rankin here. Welcome to our video today. We're going to be answering one of your questions, and I thank you for sending those questions in. Today's question has to do with, do we flee or do we stay? And how do we know what is the right thing to do during situations such as wartime that the Ukrainians are facing right now? So we're going to answer that question. A couple of other things I want to go over real quickly here. We will get a message from Phillip, who is my spirit guide. And this is a book of oracles. This is called The Master's Book of Answers by Phillip. And we'll just, after we get Phillip's message about fleeing or staying, we'll get a message from this book as well. And yes, this book is available on Amazon. It's also, just go to my website and all that information is below. Go to my website and click on books and it'll take you to the right place. I want to tell you also, several times this past week, both personal friends and clients have contacted me to say they're having trouble sleeping, or they're really having difficulty dealing with the issue and the war and the way Putin has invaded the people of Ukraine, and what can we do about it, and especially the children. Hopefully today's video will help a bit, but what I want to tell you is I promise I will do a video on meditation. I do have several meditation videos out there. Just go through, look at my channel and see if any are helpful to you. But I will do one specifically on this. I'm not sure when. I will get to it as soon as I can. It's been a busy time for me. But one of the things you can simply do is, before you go to bed at night, just sit down for a few minutes quietly. And you can do this anytime during the day, but certainly before you go to bed. And just see the angels over those children. See the world covered with this divine light of pure peace. Talk in love. Talk in places, in words of love, and let your heart open. Those of us who feel we have a responsibility for the world take this very seriously. And so if you're listening to this video today, you're taking this very seriously. And so, hello. So good to see you, Judith. And we have, I believe this person is telling me that they're from Ukraine. I'm not sure. But please, if you are, know that we are holding you. We are saying prayers for you. I can't tell you enough how important this is. We forget, we think we're helpless. We are not helpless. We have a power within us that is connected to everything. And so use that power, whether you just think of pure light around our world, whether you think of sending angels to those children and those people, whatever works for you. But definitely stop every time you catch yourself getting angry. That's not helping. That is not helping. Yes, we push back, but the anger, those of us who are not caught in that horrific war, those of us who are not there, we need to hold the energy of love and peace. I can't stress that strongly enough. Do we get angry enough to write our Congress people or call them? Yes, absolutely. We do that. But then we have to let go of that anger, and we have to spread the love. Remember, we are all part of spirit. We are all God expressing as humans, whether we say God, love, spirit, energy, whatever word we use, universe, we are all expressing as humans. And even though our spirit side may know everything's okay, our human side is crying. And so we want that human side to be held by those of us who can hold those who have to be the warriors. All right, let me read the difference between and that will help explain it. And then again, I just want to mention, I do have another video. It's called The Calling, the Peacemakers, and the Warriors. So that video also, and I did put the link below, it's also right above. That's the link to that, The Calling, the Peacemakers and Warriors. I think that will give you some answers too. That is not necessarily reading Philip's words in that. That's my own feeling of the Peacemakers and Warriors. So let me get back to this question. How would a person in a situation such as the Ukraine people are in now know to flee the situation or to stand their ground? Here we go. Is one direction more spiritual than the other? Philip says, it is both the human's choice and their soul's mission that must be considered. By this we mean the human choice depends on the circumstances of the human's life. For example, if the human is a parent who must remove children from danger, is the human a peacemaker who has spent their life working for peace? Or is the human a police officer or a soldier who has taken an oath to defend and protect others and or their country? The human life circumstances must be considered. The soul's mission must also be followed. How do you know if they are following their soul's mission to flee or to stay? I think this question also applies to us, and I'm going to stop for a moment here and just tell you, there are often times that, not in being in a horrific position of war, but just being in a position of maybe walking at night or being in a strange place or being in a place alone and somebody else suddenly appears. Do we flee? Do we stand up? This, I think, applies to that as well. Philip goes on to say, all the answers are within the person's life lived so far and their inner urging, or as some might say, their gut instinct. For example, if a person looks at their life, they will come to an understanding of their patterns. If a child played with a toy gun and protected a young sibling from a pretend intruder, that child in adulthood will play out the same need to protect, and the use of firearms will be acceptable. If, on the other hand, a child protected another child with words or securing a safe hiding place, they are most likely going to flee to protect themselves and those most vulnerable. Both positions are correct if one knows they cannot take another person's life, even one the state considers, got to turn the page, an enemy. No amount of training to the contrary will change that. There is much that is helpful that can be done in the refuge areas to help one another by those who flee. Those who are angered and want to partake in a physical confrontation will, of course, stay. This is true also of those who have a position that is essential to the country's welfare. There are, of course, those people who do not flee and do not take up arms, or they are essential to the country's welfare. These are people who cannot flee due to circumstances, such as the caretaker for others who are unable to flee. As you can see, there are multiple shades between fleeing or staying. Looking at the many shades allows one to suspend any judgments about those who flee or those who stay. Is it not possible in many cases to speculate, it is not possible in many cases to speculate as to what you would do under circumstances similar to the ones taking place in Ukraine at this time. That is often a decision made in the moment. If one cares to speculate, you may look into your life as you have lived it until now. You will see the patterns, which then allow you to answer the question, are you a peacemaker or a warrior? So what Philip is telling us is the human circumstances definitely play a role here. I read a a very sad story, but I fully understand. She was a woman who rescued animals, rescued dogs, and she couldn't leave her dogs. And unfortunately, one of those horrific bombs took her life. I understand that. I could not leave my animals, and I did a lot of rescue before in my life. I'm down to fewer animals now. I have Daisy and Lily and Magic and Joey and Andy, and to leave them would be very, very difficult. However, if I had an ill parent who could not leave, would I leave that parent? No. There are many reasons I can think of, as Phillip said, multiple shades of gray, or multiple shades. It doesn't say of gray, just multiple shades. And so it's not an easy answer. And so whoever is, we can never judge whether someone stays or goes. And it might be someone who says, I never thought I would pick up a weapon, but I'm ready. You know, many, many years ago, at the time I was married, and my husband traveled a lot. And we lived in the city. And it turned out one day that, you know, the people beside us was robbed one night, and the people on the other side of us, and then the people across the street, 2 people were robbed. And so one of my neighbors called my husband and said, you better get home. So he said, on the flight home, he said, I thought about, because he was a man, he wasn't a hunter, but he was familiar with guns, and he was comfortable with guns. I certainly wasn't. And he knew that. And so he thought about, on the way home, like, gee, I wonder if she'd let me teach her how to use a gun, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, I came to the conclusion that even if you knew how to use a gun, you would end up dead yourself, because you wouldn't be able to harm the other person. And he knew that about me, and I was grateful. But he said, could I at least put a baseball bat under the bed? I said, no, I've got that white light, and I so believe my angels are protecting me. And if it were my time to go, then I would go, and I would go as peacefully as possible. So I'm not saying we shouldn't defend ourselves by any means, but I am saying, if you're someone like I am and could not take another life, then you shouldn't have a gun, and you shouldn't stay. You need to flee where you could do more work, more help in the refugee camps, or if you decide to stay, to set up in your own area where you can help people. If you are a warrior and you know that, or you feel that, then yes, you should. Your defense of the country is going to be very different, whether you stay or flee. It's up to each of us individually, and no one can answer that for you. No one. And I want to say that very strongly. No one can answer that for us. Our gut instinct, our intuition, our psychic ability will help us. I was recently at my neighbor's, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're out in the country, and I was taking care of their animals. They were on a trip. And so I was down feeding their cats when this man came in a big pickup and came on pretty aggressively. I wasn't frightened, though. There was something in me that said, he's a bully, stand up to the bully, he will not harm you. There was no question in my mind. Had I felt he was going to harm me, I would have run into the house and locked the door and called the police. But I was positive he was not going to harm me. So I stood up to him, and he backed down and he left. In that case, I needed to stay. If circumstances were different and I felt threatened in any way, I would flee. It's that time that we may not know until the time is before us, whether we flee or we stay. But Phillip is telling us they are both correct. A little bit more information on this, on the warriors and the peacemakers, is to go watch that other video. I made it, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Let's get our message for the day, shall we? Or for the week, or for however long you want to keep it. I am hearing a mixture of right and left, but right is a little bit stronger. So if you heard right, our intuition is in sync. If you heard left, then that's a message you need to pay attention to. So here's what the right message is. It always ceases. It never stops amazing me how right on these messages are. So here's our message. Peace will not come if you are always preparing for war. Peace will not come if you are always preparing for war. Okay, my friends, we each of us have that responsibility to not prepare for war. That's not to say the governments shouldn't. In our world today, the governments have to. Hopefully that's going to be changing because the feminine, as you know, the feminine is rising. There's a lot of fighting against the feminine rising. But as that feminine rises, it's more and more love energy. So keep in mind, peace will not come if you are always preparing for war. Let us keep peace in our hearts. Let us recognize our fears, our angers. Let us trust ourselves enough to know that in the moment, we will know if we are to flee or to stay. If you heard left, that's a message you need to pay attention to. The mud of the water lily's root is as much a part of the lotus as is the beauty of its blossoms. Sorry. I get a little emotional when I think about the war, when I think about the people. The mud of the water lily's root is as much a part of the lotus as is the beauty of its blossom. And what that is saying to us is in our human life experience, it's what the sun and the moon teach us. The moon will go to sleep and the sun will come up. The sun will go to sleep and the moon will come up. There will always be a mixture of light and dark. When we are in the dark, let us look at the stars and see as much light as we can and do whatever we can to help those who can't see the moon or the stars. Hello, Wendy. Hello, Dawn. Dawn says, thank you. God bless all. Judith is sending hearts and prayers and a dove. And forgive me, V, you are, I'm not sure how to say your name, and I'm afraid of saying it wrong, so I'm going to call you A. It says life. Yes, life. And Wendy says, hi. We all have a right to life, and that includes every single human being around the world, in whatever country, including Ukraine. Our prayers are with you. Our hearts are with you. And I've said the best thing about the internet is that we're getting that message out there. I thank you, my friends, for being with me today. I am so grateful. Please put your questions in the comments below or just email them to me. You can find my email address below. It's also on my website. That information is below. I thank you for supporting me. I am so grateful to have all of you in my life. You know, I said to someone recently, it is much easier for me to stand in front of a group of a few hundred people than it is to do the electronics. But this is what we have. And I'm so grateful that we have this. I'm so grateful to each of you for the love that you send to me. And I am so grateful for the love that you receive as I send it out. Thank you, my friends. I love you. Let's keep the prayers. Let's keep the beauty going. And I will get that meditation done. In the meantime, check out my other videos with those meditations. And be safe. Be safe. Whether you are a warrior or a peacemaker, take care of yourself. I love you. I love you. Bye for now.